To tell the story of the Yelverton Inn, we have to start at the beginning.
In 1751, John Beers held title to 120 acres of the original Cromline tract in the Wawayanda patent in the neighborhood of the present Main Street and Durland corners. On June 16th of that year, he staked off 42 3/4 acres and sold the parcel to James Ensign. 4 years later, on May 19, 1755, John Yelverton came along, looked at the land, liked it, and made Ensign an offer, and the sale was made for £97, 4 shillings. John Yelverton, the immigrant, walked up the hilly side of his newly acquired plot, looked down upon the lay of the land, and impressed with its beauty, his mind's eye visualized a growing, expanding community. He thought of the lovely town of Chester in Old England, where he was born, and associating it in his mind with this magnificent place, gave it the same name. From Chester, New York, A History, by S.J. Levy, 1947.
John Yelverton began building his inn, which was completed in 1765. It was for many years a historic outpost built on an important thoroughfare of those days, the Wawayanda Path, which in colonial days was called the King's Highway. When the Yelverton Inn came along, it pushed Daniel Cromline's Grey Court Inn, built in 1716, into the background.
Rumours had been about that the older place was not quite up to respectable standards. Now this new place, it was different. It was more up to date. From Chester, New York, A History, by S.J. Levy, 1947.
If you can imagine being here in 1765 on what was probably the road connecting Chester to Goshen, which was then the county seat, and actually we would have then been in the precinct of Goshen at the time, you would have seen this new inn, the Yelverton Inn.
John passed away in 1767, and in his will, he gave the Yelverton to his grandson, Abijah, who is credited with having the qualities of leadership and vision to continue to turn his grandfather's dream of creating a community into a reality.
On the 3rd day of September, 1774, a meeting of the inhabitants of the precincts of Goshen and Cornwall in the county of Orange, province of New York, were assembled in Chester at the Yelverton Inn, and Henry Wisner, by a majority of votes, was sent to the Continental Congress held in Philadelphia to protest against unjust taxation. From Chester, New York, A History, by S.J. Levy, 1947.
During the Revolutionary War, the Yelverton played a pivotal role as a frequent transit point for the Continental Army due to its location.
And so then, was this the Wawayanda Path, or where was that?
This was the Wawayanda. It went right. You're virtually looking at it, and you're virtually looking at what would become the Colonial King's Highway in 1735.
Okay.
And it was a huge right of way too. I mean, it went right into the. Well. In fact, it was before this was built.
When it was a path, it was a path for walking.
Yeah.
Or pack animals.
Right.
So the idea of an improved, physically improved right of way, they were just paths.
Right.
But it was a strategic value during the Revolution.
And well established.
So a lot of very prominent people that fought in the Revolutionary War and the Americans came right through these doors and dined in this building.
George Washington is noted for keeping an exceptional account of the military's expenses during the war. These are a small portion of those expenses that reflect the Continental Army's leaders being at the Yelverton.
Colonel Alexander Hamilton, General George Washington's aide-de-camp, and Captain Caleb Gibbs, commander of General George Washington's Guards, stopped at the Yelverton on November 1st, 1777 on their way from Philadelphia to Albany, and on November 14th, 1777 on their return trip. As paymaster to the Quartermaster General's Department, Peter Anspach's Records of Disbursements, show a payment made to Timothy Pickering, Quartermaster General of the Army, on February of 1781 for A. Yelverton's receipt. Robert Erskine was a significant figure in the Revolutionary War, serving as a map maker for General George Washington. He was appointed geographer and surveyor general on July 27, 1777. During his tenure, his mapping agency created over 200 precise and detailed maps for the Continental Army. In 1782, he created a map, number 128, roads from New Windsor to Goshen, Florida, and Chester, that included an important stop for General George Washington and his army, the Yelverton Inn.
Robert Erskine was a surveyor in this area, especially for the Continental Army, George Washington, and he laid out a bunch of maps, basically showing the various routes to take to get to various places.
And places that members of the Army could stay, for example, rooms to sleep.
So, Yelverton Inn,
Tavern, and Warwick.
They would all be identified along with some of the residents of the areas. So yeah, this was a very important place on a very important route.
General George Washington himself was entertained at the inn on July 27, 1782, during his travels between Philadelphia and Newburgh.
After the Revolution, Alexander Hamilton was back in Chester in March of 1785, along with Aaron Burr, and staying at the Yelverton Inn, preparing for the Wawayanda versus Cheesecok patent trial. During their stay, Burr informed Hamilton that the house Hamilton and his wife were renting, possibly the house they rented on Broad Street near Fraunces Tavern, is for sale, Hamilton wrote his wife.
I have just written to you, my beloved, by the person who will probably be the bearer of this. Colonel Burr just tells me that the house we live in is offered for sale at £2,100. I am to request you to agree for the purchase for me. If at the price, if you cannot do better, you may engage that the whole shall be paid in 3 months. But I could wish to pay half in a short time, and the other half in a year. Adieu, my angel. A. Hamilton, Chester, March 17th, 1785.
Hamilton and Burr were back at the Yelverton from May to October of 1785, and the Yelverton barn became their courtroom. The Wawayanda versus Cheesecok patents trial was beginning, and Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr were representing the Wawayanda patentees.
And what makes this important for us locals is that the Wawayanda patent, which was concluded in 1723. Yeah. The Wawayanda patent consisted of much of what is today Orange County today, 195,000 acres or so. And but it was never properly and thoroughly surveyed. And as colonists began to move into this area, it was difficult for them to get capital, to borrow money, to buy property and establish their farms, because they had no legal title, because the land had never been thoroughly surveyed.
Mm-hmm. And the neighboring surveys, like the patents, like the Cheesecok patent, which is now most of Rockland County, and East Jersey and West Jersey, those boundaries were not clearly defined. So there were some people who had claiming the same piece of property with title from the Cheesecok patentees or bought from the Wawayanda patentees. So in 1785, there was a trial to settle the boundaries between Cheesecok and Wawayanda, and that was held here. And at the time, it was called Trial of the Century.
Really?
Yeah.
And in a way, it really was. I mean, they hired 2 of the top attorneys. By that time, Hamilton and Burr were well known, well respected. Cost a lot of money if you wanted to hire them.
And they both stayed here.
Stayed right here and had the trial. The case was heard in the building just behind the house.
In the barn?
In what's
in the
called
barn.
Carriage House, yeah.
Yeah.
That supposedly was rebuilt about 1900 and I was told in the same form, but it doesn't, the form looks too new. I think they modernized it when they rebuilt it around 1900. And the reason it was held there is because there wasn't enough room in here.
Oh. Wow. And so how old were Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr when this was happening?
Oh, they were still relatively young and very ambitious and very competitive. And they were representing the same. I mean, they weren't.
They were partners for the way beyond it. Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr were basically on the losing side. They weren't used to that.
So Cheese Cook won the patent.
They didn't win.
Or what?
They got more of the disputed territory than the way beyond the patent did.
There were two. They had two. They were seen as important after the Revolutionary War. This is what, just 2 years, 1783, the war.
1785 was the.
And this was 85.
Right.
So they were anxious to get this settled. There was tremendous pressure. The population was growing. They needed official surveys to borrow money from institutions to develop their farms, and so everybody was anxious and waiting for this finally to be settled.
Chester's first library was incorporated November 17th, 1797, with 7 trustees, and was verified before Judge Wickham and recorded the same year. Abijah Yelverton was the first librarian. From History of Orange County, New York, Russell Headley, 1908.
The inn ceased operations in 1832 upon Abijah's death. The Yelverton family owned the inn through 6 generations. In 1866, Joseph Durland bought the property and made the Yelverton Inn his family's home. This family took great pride in the history the Yelverton held and kept the exterior and interior true to its beginnings.
Is that the Durland family acquired the property from the Yelvertons, who had owned it for several generations. They acquired the property, and as I said, that family lived here progressively, and they always cherished it. I mean, as a boy, I would come in here to give things to the Durlands, and he'd take me through and say, that table's been here over 200 years, and this and that and this and that. The Durlands appreciated this building, and it was extremely well cared for. And the building was owned by very few families. The Yelvertons and the Durlands lived here for more than 6, almost, I think 7 generations, until they sold it in about 1980 to Richard Ramsdell.
In December of this year, the Jones family became the 4th owners of the Yelverton Inn, barn and store. Jim, Linda, and their son Peter are proud to continue Yelverton's rich history while bringing new life to the property. As part of this tradition, they are returning Durlands to its roots as a store by moving their business, Linda's Lockers, into the space, honoring the building's long-standing role in the community.
And what is so remarkable is that this building is practically exactly as it was in 1765, 1766. Very little changes have been made, other than the addition, which was made only 10 years or so separated the original section and the addition. But it was it's a building that is in structurally still good shape. It needs some work inside, but the mantels, the doorways,
interior features,
the interior features, as it's almost intact, just as it was in 1785, when Hamilton and Burr walked right through this door, for sure, and right into the kitchen for lunch. And you can sit in the kitchen and look through some of the panes of glass in the windows, and you can tell that those are original panes because they were handmade, you can tell, and they had, through years of ultraviolet rays passing through, they were somewhat discolored. And they're still here. So one could have sat in the old Dutch table that used to be here too until just a few weeks ago when it was sold in a tag sale. They undoubtedly sat there, had their lunches, and looked through those very glass panes that one can do today. It's really amazing.
You ready?
You're ready.
Wait for the
Okay.
traffic.
Oh, what about all that traffic though?
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with
I'm so we can walk back out of the sun into the shade.
This was an ideal location for an inn. Boy, it has gotten hot suddenly, hasn't it?
Summer all of a sudden. The structure of the building. We were in colonial times.
Okay.
(1865) to 1927. The Yelverton Inn, built in 1765. Used as a tavern for 67 years.
Now that window, for example, is definitely original, isn't it? To the building. The size of it. And all of these, yeah, they're all about the same. Well, glass was very expensive in those days.
Still is.
Yeah, it is. You're right. You're right. To sell.
Speaking of that, would you be available Saturday, June 21st in the afternoon?
So we've got a lot of fascinating history here. And Clifton has been town historian, municipal historian of Chester for many years, and has accumulated an enormous amount of material that is in the archives of the Chester Historical Society, and a lot of it is now on the computer and is accessible to people.